it might be. My name is John and I'm delighted you joined today's ESPC community webinar. Today I'm joined by Pascal Brunner, MVP, who will cover Working Smarter with Copilot, real scenarios for everyday work. We love hearing what you guys have to say, so remember join conversation about today's webinar and more on X. Our handle is at ESPC_community and our hashtag is hashtag ESPC26. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which updates the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting our website, espc.tech, and clicking the Learning Hub at the top of the page. Don't forget to join us for our next webinar, Lightning Talk, introducing Work IQ for Developers with Paolo Piazzi, MVP. This will take place tomorrow, 14th of May at 4 p.m. CEST. To register, visit Microsoft Copilot registration page. Join us at ESPC 26 this November in Amsterdam. The newly announced program features 120 plus sessions across 9 expert-led tracks covering Microsoft 365, Copilot, AI, Power Platform, security, governance, agents, and more, including real-world insights from Microsoft experts and MVPs. Super early bird tickets are available until 26th of May. Use code COPILOTWEEK for additional savings and book using the QR code. Early bird pricing ends Friday the 15th of May. Ski your tickets to EPPC 26 today and expand your knowledge across Power Apps, Copilot Studio, Copilot, AI, Power Automate, Security, and Dynamics. Use code COPILOTWEEK for additional savings and scan the QR code to book now. After the webinar, we'll have a dedicated Q&A session. Please feel free to type any questions into the chat box. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you will be notified by email when it's available. And now I'm going to hand you over to today's presenter. Hello, Pascal. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, John, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to start my screen. And welcome from Switzerland. So happy to be here with you. I have the pleasure to give you some background how to use Copilot for your daily work and to give some ideas how I use Copilot every day. And I'm curious to then also have your questions at the very end to deep dive on different topics. But first of all, maybe let me start with a few slides. And I think that's a pattern you noticed all the last few weeks or maybe already a month ago. So we had Nano Banana 2, where everyone tells us, hey, this is changing how we can create slides or pictures. Then we had Opus 4.7 with a whole new spectrum within the Claude environment. And of course, since a few weeks, we have GPT 5.5. And again, everyone is telling this is the new best AI model that is on the market. So I think there's kind of a pattern. We have super fast release cycles. And what I notice on the market is that so many employees still struggle to just master the basics and to just get started with their Copilot in their daily jobs. And this is what we exactly going to cover today. So I'm Pascal, I'm head of modern work at Campana and Schott and have the pleasure to be a Microsoft MVP in Copilot and Copilot extensibility, which is basically agents. With that said, I'm also quite active on LinkedIn, so I'm trying to get my audience involved about the latest and greatest, but also to connect it with what I see on the market at my customers in the Copilot projects. And therefore, I have my newsletter, Copilot Your Day, where every Monday morning is coming a new episode to it. So let's start with the basic, as mentioned. I think this is super important. As mentioned, I think too many people haven't really started with AI in general. So we have the ones that are super advanced, or how Microsoft is calling the frontiers, that have this AI mindset. But in reality, there are so many people left behind and struggling to really find their way with Copilot. So, first of all, what we see on the market and also see in different organizations, and I think this is hopefully something you can relate with it. Um, of course, from an organizational point of view, you would like to go big and do the transformational stuff and change the way how AI can also change the business models and so on. But in reality, it really starts with the personal productivity layer. So it's the real base to then be able to step up, going into process AI, to AI infuse your processes and have end-to-end processes, and where you then connect, hey, here it's an agent relevant, here's maybe not generative AI but another AI, the best approach. But we are talking today about this everyday AI step where we have really focusing on routine tasks to improve quality, to have a better understanding what we would like to achieve throughout the day. And one thing I hear again and again, it's about all this ROI discussion. So, hey, what is the time saving on Copilot, or what is XYZ, and how can we showcase that Copilot really delivers an added value and so on. So I just published on Monday a Copilot Your Day, a newsletter where I talked about how I see the time saving matters. And I think it's not about just saving times in minutes, but really what are we able to do with the same saved times. And one customer example I had 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think this was just perfect, that sums it up. She said to me, hey, I measured roughly, I saved about 2 hours because I can reply faster to emails. And now I decided to invest those time to go into a co-pilot session to self-develop and self-learn new capabilities I can do with Copilot. And I think this is a complete different approach. And this is what I would like to cover also today, that you have maybe when you invest this 40 to 45 minutes today, that you get an inspiration how you could use Copilot also more efficient in your daily work. So just to sum up, of course, we have Copilot Chat, or the Copilot Basic, as it's called nowadays, right? We have M365 Copilot, or Copilot Premium, as it's called today. And then we have Copilot agents. Everything protected within the AI data boundaries, or enterprise data protections. Um, Wherever you are joining, of course, especially in Europe, there are some discussion about should we allow Claude or not. Just in general, of course, Copilot has this multi-model approach that we can not only select one provider, but several. I would not discuss today all the, the discussion about Claude in general. Should we allow it or enable it or not? But just to get an idea, Copilot is really a multi-model approach. But the real challenge is, and what I hear on the market, um, people struggle to find the start or to get an idea how to start with Copilot. So I hear it that often, that someone said, hey, I have Copilot license for about, I know, multiple months or weeks, but I do not really know how to use it. And I do not really know how to start with it. Same, it's good for finding the documents that lives within SharePoint, but other than that, it's not really useful. And of course, always this discussion, is model A or B better? I think, especially about this model conversation, one thing to keep in mind, and I think this is one of the unique selling point also from Copilot, is work IQ. And this is one concept I would like to share with you before we go into the live demo. Because work IQ makes kind of every model better, because it understands how your organization is working. It understands how you interact and how your activities are within M365 Copilot. And of course, now also with skills and tools, we can also extend the capabilities of Copilot in general. So Work IQ is kind of the intelligence layer that sits on top of every model. It doesn't really matter which one you're selected. I have also a deep dive Copilot Today episode on that if you're curious to understand better how the different layers work with each other. But in general, just keep in mind, Work IQ is relevant for each model wherever or whichever you are selecting. So I've mentioned several people are struggling how to start, and I've summed up my first 7 step I would do today if I would start it today with Copilot. And I think, of course, you get the recording. You can also write me on LinkedIn if you have additional questions. But these are really first 7 steps that are worth to invest time to make Copilot better. And first one is personalization. We are going to have a look at it in a minute. But I think this is one of the key aspect that you can tell Copilot how it works or how it should work on your behalf. Then we have the new capabilities with calendar instructions where we can Copilot give some ideas. For example, on Friday, I have a meeting free zone or no meeting Friday. Please always click on follow if a new invite is coming on Friday and so on. So it helps you also to auto response to certain invitations, and then start and end your day with Copilot. All right, let's go into the demo that I can show you what I just presented. And first of all, I've mentioned the custom instruction or the personalization. So for those of you who just start with Copilot and have the Copilot license, go on m365copilot.com. You will have access to the Copilot interface. Of course, it's also accessible through the desktop app or in Teams. I'm here in my demo environment. That's why I'm here on the web environment. So first things first. Of course, we have here the model selection. Since a few days, you can also select Claude here if your organization has selected or allowed Claude. You can also select other GPT models here. And so it seems more like a countdown rather than different models, right? So you can select from 5.2 to 5.5. And otherwise, if you're not sure which is the best model, just stick to auto. I think then Copilot takes over and makes the best job for you. Let's start with the personalization part. You can click on the 3 dots, click on settings, and within settings, we have the personalization part. And I just mentioned Work IQ, and Work IQ, as mentioned, is also or has access to your work profile data. So that's why you also see the job title, office location, and all stuff that are relied within the Entra ID. But the more interesting part is the custom instructions, because within custom instruction, we can define how Copilot should act on our behalf. And this is something that is always in place when you interact with Copilot. So for example, I communicate strategically, precisely, and in a friendly manner. I also do not want just that Copilot always says yes and everything is great, but I would like to have an honest and critical collaboration with Copilot. It should act more as a sparring partner for me, and so on. And also here, if you struggle to define your first custom instruction, also just go to Copilot and say, for example, hey Copilot, I would like to create my personal instruction. Can you please double check how I use Copilot so far, and then create a first custom instruction for me that I can just copy and paste. So then you can just, for example, also go into first interaction or iteration with Copilot. So whenever you're not sure how to use Copilot, just ask Copilot how it can help you, right? So here are a first idea how it then could use. You can copy and paste it, go back to the three dots, and just add it to personalization, and it's saved. Second part are the schedule prompts. And I think this is also kind of a basic approach. You have maybe some recurring patterns with Copilot. For example, hey, I would like to get an overview of my day every morning at 7 a.m. or whatsoever. So we can kind of um, save this prompt and scheduling. So I've prepared this already. So help me prepare for my day. I need to have a tabular overview, blah, 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 blah. It then goes through all my unread messages and also team messages. Of course, you can specify here what's important for you. What are the today's meeting? Other important observation. And then another first advice I would like to give you to also interact with the agent you have access to on the left-hand side. So whenever you interact with Copilot, you can also always click on Add, and for example, add planner. This one is right now in front here, so it may not yet available for you. However, so let's imagine we got here the first overview about our unread messages where I have to maybe answer today. So here is one decision relevant email is open. And I can then also ask Copilot, hey, what are my open tasks? And it says, hey, I have 3 overdue tasks in Planner. So with the Planner agent, we can also have access to those information. And then you have kind of a first idea. But of course, you do not want to start every single day with just copy and paste the same prompt every day. So what you can do is just click here on this little watch icon, schedule this prompt. And with that said, it opens a new pop-up where it has the prompt in it. And then you can define, hey, from Monday to Friday, I would like to have this prompt scheduled on 6 a.m. I have every week until, let's say, until end of June. And I would like to receive an email. This is maybe helpful in the beginning that you get informed that, yeah, right, there was something. And then you can just click on save. You see here, it's a quite obvious one I show again and again, but you find all your schedule prompts also here under the 3 dots, schedule prompts. And this is really powerful. So for example, I use this also. We have an internal chat called the virtual co-pilot team, where all our different consultants are sharing ideas, new updates, new features, and so on. So you could also schedule a prompt every Friday noon. I would like to get a summary what has been written in this chat the last 5 days or whatsoever. Or if you're a project manager, what has been discussed today about project X or whatsoever. Or if you have a one-to-one with your manager or with your employees, every Wednesday morning, you can schedule, hey, Copilot, please help me prepare my one-to-ones, and blah, 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 blah. So this is super powerful, highly recommended to get started with schedule prompts. With that said, let's switch to the researcher. Of course, I think you're all familiar with researcher, right? It's one of the most powerful researcher or a powerful agent that Microsoft is providing, in my opinion. And if you have enabled Claude, and that's why I'm showing you, because maybe not all of you have yet enabled Claude, but if you have enabled it, you get new capabilities within the researcher agent. And I really like this because it's so powerful. So we have the critique and we have the model council. Let's start with the model council. Um, so come back, Tim, to your question. I saw it, but just be here in the researcher. So I selected the model council, and as said, so when we do model council, GPT and Claude is starting with their deep reasoning, and we get then the output of both platforms or for both providers. So once with the GPT model and one with the Claude models. And of course, both models have different strengths and weaknesses. And with that said, the researcher agent highlights the differences between the topic and what GPT said and what Claude said, for example. So there is kind of a direct comparison between model A and B within one subscription. And then let's have a look at the Claude model, for example. Okay, Claude said for this particular research, so I asked to conduct a comparative analysis between Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini. And what we see here when we use the Claude model, we have multiple tables and so on. And we can then compare it directly with the GPT one. So I think this is super powerful to, if you do not know, is A or B better, you can just use the model council. On the other hand, we can use the critique feature as well. And I think this is also a nice one. So as it mentioned here, GPT responses and Claude does the refining. So what does this mean? I have the same prompt here just for demo, but the first answer has been generated by ChatGPT, and Claude did kind of a double check and fact check based on the outcome. So we use AI to check the AI answers, and I think this is super powerful and a great way to use both in combination, because as mentioned, of course, both have their strength and weaknesses. So yeah, I answer live the questions from Tim. So he asked, do you schedule prompts work at any time, or does the Copilot app need to be opened for this? Thank you for this question. This is super relevant. It does work at any time. So once you've started it, you get here kind of the green tick, and it says completed. So you can go back to your schedule prompt at any times. You do not need to have to open it. You can also do it at 2 a.m. in the morning. And once you go to Copilot, you can search for the green tick on the left-hand side, and there you get your notification that the answer is now ready. So just use the schedule prompt and it's ready whenever you need it. All right, switching to other daily scenarios. And of course, I think one of the most obvious one, so we did now our personal briefing. So we had some open questions. And of course, in Outlook and all other Office apps, we can use Copilot as well. So one hand side, we can also leverage here Copilot and say, for example, which emails needs urgent replies. Let's imagine you're coming back from vacation and need a first indicator what's important or what's not. You've mentioned here there is a pre-prompt, and it then gives you a first idea where is an important one. So right now there's no critical one, so no urgent threats or whatsoever. This is great, right? But then we can go here on the email. We can just say, this is not that interesting. We can say, hey, summarize by Copilot. So if you have a large email thread, you just can click on that and get an overview. Also, if there were some discussion between people A and B, this is a great way to get started. And of course, once you click on reply, you can also just reply here and say, for example, please reply to Anna that we need an additional meeting to go into the details about the Copilot implementation. And then it has this context awareness, so it does understand what Anna has mentioned beforehand. And based on that, it does then the auto reply, and it will then generate a first mail for us or first draft. This is especially helpful if you're not communicating in your mother tongue, right? So if, for example, I'm German speaking and need to reply on English, so I'm a German speaker, and of course I have some misspelling or grammar issues sometimes, or maybe not only sometimes, but quite often, and then you can refine it. And you can not only use Copilot to create a first draft, you can also select a certain section, click here on the little magic button, and say, I would like to make it longer, simplify, or whatsoever, or you can click here, blah, 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 and it does the job for you. So you can also formulate, for example, your email in the first hand in German or in English, and then just select everything and say, please translate this to French. And then it does the job for you, and you have a well-written French email, however you may be not native speaking in English. So it says here, bonjour Anna. I say replace it, and we are ready to go. Another important part is emails, or not emails, but appointments and meetings, of course. So one thing, and here were some pretty nice updates the last couple of weeks. So let's say we would like to have the alignment on Copilot rollout with Anna. So you define the subject, you define the needed people, and you just can click here on Ask Copilot to create an agenda. So based on your subject and the invited people, Copilot search for the relevant information and then create a first agenda. And I think we're talking so much about AI and how AI can help us to improve what we are doing. And if you think about how many meetings you have visited this week without a clear agenda or a clear outcome, I think this is one of the quick fixes that you can do from now on, that every single meeting has an agenda or a defined outcome. So it reasons now over the different parts. So it identifies, for example, hey, there is Anna is head of IT. We need to discuss this one. There is this email, Freigabe Projektbudgets, or is an approval for project budget. And we have at least a first indication what the meeting is about. This one here, I think this is right now still in frontier, but we can help, or we can allow Copilot that they can manage conflicts for us. So let's say we define a meeting, but then is another meeting incoming, maybe from a customer side, and Anna need to prioritize this one. We can choose meetings, for example, between Monday morning, midday, and afternoon. I do not like to have it on midday. So whenever now, when I'm handing over this to Anna and we get a conflict on the appointments, Copilot double check both calendars and do automatically a rescheduling. And of course, also here, this is super crucial. If you have 100 appointments each week and every single time slot is booked by yourself because you have blockers in it and so on, the best AI cannot use it, because you need also to have the right culture or the right way of working to leverage such a feature. But let's assume that you have a pretty clear calendar and working with the different status. This is quite helpful to auto rescheduling your appointments. And with that said, I think one important part, and this has nothing to do with AI at all, but you can use the show as feature. And if it's, for example, just a blocker for yourself, but you are actually free, use this one, because then AI can also understand which meetings are relevant for you, or which meetings are you really blocked, and others that maybe just reminder or something like that. Speaking of meetings, let's jump into some nice, cool new settings. So when we go to the little settings here, the option, the Copilot, and we have different parts of it. So on the one hand side, we have prioritize. So Copilot can help you to prioritize your inbox. So you can enable this one and can then select, for example, which are the high priorities, for example, Copilot rollout. So everything that's come with Copilot rollout and everything from Anna is important. And low priority is, for example, newsletter. So you can give Copilot some indication what are priorities, what not, or what are low priorities. I can save it. Then this applies to your new emails. And it highlighted here, let's say here, you get then the overview with all the high priorities. So there, it hasn't applied yet, but if you have enabled it, of course, this is only helpful if you have dozens of emails each day. If you have a clean inbox anyway, this is maybe a feature that is not that relevant for you. So going back to the settings, and one of my favorite ones is also the calendar instruction. I've mentioned this in the 7 steps. So you can say with Copilot, let's see if he's talking to me in English. Otherwise, I have to translate it. So when you click there, it says, help me set up Copilot instruction for managing my calendar. So it now double checks, and I can say, for example, hey, every Tuesday from domain, let's say Campana and Shot, please accept it if I'm free. Or if it's an invite on Friday, please click on follow. So here are some suggestions. Example, automatically accept one-to-one meeting from Anna, and so on. So there are first suggestions from Copilot. And I can say, please apply all of these. And now Copilot is going to set up all the instructions for you. And I get quite often then the answer, hey, how do I see which appointments are coming and which not? So Copilot will, even though if you have, for example, a new invite, it's still in your inbox, but the answer has already sent. So for example, you could then also override the rule if you would like to accept the meeting on this Friday either way. So you can just then click on accept. So you still have it in your inbox, but Copilot handles the first reply. And of course, if there is no instruction, it won't send any feedback to it. And it's also a little sent by Copilot footnote or footer. So also that the other ones see that this is an auto reply from Copilot. So I have activated this quite heavily for my use cases. So I've mentioned, for example, I work always on Tuesday for customer XYZ. I said, if my calendar is free and it's coming from domain XYZ, please accept it. And this also helps us to do some basic stuff, right? And there are also other features. Of course, the custom instruction for drafting emails that you could set, calendar instruction. This is also frontier these days, but it should come hopefully also for others. But calendar actions will coming as well. So not only auto reply, but also that Copilot actually do something. For example, if there is a decline on meeting X, that it automatically deleted from your calendar or stuff like that. So right now, Frontier, so it's only available if your organization has enabled Frontier at all, but helpful in any way. Switching from Outlook to PowerPoint, and of course, PowerPoint, we had kind of a hard or difficult start with Copilot and PowerPoint, right? But to be honest, it's getting really better and better, especially with all the Claude integration. So it's really good in creating new presentation with the Claude models. And we have this edit in Copilot. Maybe you have seen this as well. So we can not only use Copilot in PowerPoint to retrieve information, but we can also say, for example, hey, please do, for example, please switch the headers to orange or to blue or whatsoever, and then it really iterates throughout your presentation and actually do stuff for you. And one thing I would like to highlight, there is also an image model selection at the very bottom. So also here, the latest GPT Image 2 model is available as well. So, and this picture here is generated by the image model. So I could say here, please create a new picture for this slide. This take a couple of seconds or minute, but it used the latest GPT model to generate new pictures. So of course, this is quite handy to have it quite here or directly here in PowerPoint as well. Same applies with Edit in Copilot to Excel and of course also Word and so on. So you will see always here it's in German, Bearbeitung zulassen, so Edit with Copilot. And we have now also Plan. So for example, before you have maybe a more complex Excel, you can select Plan and define what you would like to do, and Copilot start with planning its action before it really does stuff, and then you can confirm or not. This is also super helpful. For example, I've done this beforehand, but this revenue analysis is built complete by Copilot in maybe 5 or 6 iteration. And as you can see, it does also quite complex formulas. It also gives you some ideation how to use it and so on. So for example, which is the best day in a week per service, for example, and for delivery, it's on Thursday, and maybe the highest revenue is on Friday as well. Perfect. Maybe last but not least, but I think you've got the idea. One thing I do quite obviously here in the webinar, but I think it's more a task to you to start thinking in kind of different process step, whether in just different features. So I call it sometimes the feature tourism. So especially on LinkedIn and in such webinars, we are focusing on individual features, but I think the real magic really happens when you're connecting the dots and trying to understand how you do your work and how you achieve the best outcome for you. So for example, if you have some protocols of course, with a given structure, just leverage adding in Copilot. And then you can, of course, always link to other material or to other contexts. So, for example, if you had a meeting, Project X status update, and say, hey, please write a protocol based on this meeting, which is transcribed, and please use this OneNote agenda structure, and so on. So start to reconnect with all the different aspects. And I think then you really get more out of it. And just as the last demo, because I hear it quite often, that this is something that people would like to see. Of course, there's also Copilot Cowork live in action. Um, Basically, Copilot Cowork is just another agent within your environment. So with that said, you can edit Cowork here. Since last week, it's also accessible through your mobile. And you get also here kind of a task board. If you have, let's see, they switched it here from needs input. So you can also really start doing stuff and start doing stuff. We just saw a help me prepare my day, right? But the real magic happens when we then start to really do stuff with Copilot. So I just said, hey, help me organize my inbox. What are total numbers of emails? What is spam? What is not important to me? And so on. And it breaks down to me. So there were 21 calendar and meeting notification, which is quite irrelevant. And we have actually 2 incoming emails, which are unread. Of course, as always, it's linked directly, so we can just click on that. But there is an urgency assessment. So we neither email is there is a decision to do. Sean, are you still hearing me?
Yeah, it just lagged a little bit, but it's back again.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry about that because it said connection lost.
Ah,
So
no, you're
just
still there. It just lagged a little bit. Yeah. Thanks.
okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, just to sum up, so what we can do is now here walk through by one in one, or for example, the meeting notification. I would like to archive all of that, so we can really start to iterate with Copilot, and it then triages my inbox. Same applies for calendar. Um, I have, for example, applied a skill that creates presentation in our corporate design. So I can say, hey, for example, I would like to do a project status report for project X. Please collect all the internal data available for XYZ. Then do an email draft for my customer, sum up all the budget, time scope, and so on. And at the very end, please create a PowerPoint presentation. So the real context switch is coming from we do not prompt in the sense of prompt answer prompt, but we really start to think about the target or the overall goal we would like to achieve. And Copilot gets its own plan how to achieve this goal. And this is super powerful. I do have also a LinkedIn learning course about that if you're curious to get started with Copilot Cowork. And also you can do stuff like um, I just show you the personal briefing every morning, right? So what I've done here, for example, instead of have the briefing within Copilot, I just said to my Copilot Cowork, go through all the individual information and please send me every morning such a briefing in my personal Teams chat. So I have here kind of my personal briefing every day. Of course, you could also say, "Hey, let's do it for email or whatsoever." But it's really powerful with Cool. cowork. All right. Regards to the time, I would like to close with some additional information, and then would cover the questions if there are many. So first of all, especially since Copilot has evolved quite dramatically, there are so many new features upcoming. And also, should I use M365 Copilot? Should I use notebooks, Cowork, or Agent? This is based on a LinkedIn post I made, kind of a when to use what guide. So of course it's super high level, but just keep in mind, if you would just like to retrieve information, go to M365 Copilot. When you would like to retrieve plus context, go to Copilot Notebooks. If it's more about execution, use Cowork. And if it's more a business process with some execution, you should think about agents. And also, just for your information, some LinkedIn learning courses I have, maybe on the basic layer or on the intermediate layer, wherever you feel like ready. And also some additional articles that picks up some additional information I've covered today. But I'm curious to talk about your questions and thought, maybe your challenges you have within your organization, and happy to share my insights with you. With that said, if you have any questions, also feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. Happy to answer your question there as well. And also thank you, Sean, for having me today.
Yeah, thank you, Pascal. Great presentation and demos. So the next question is, Copilot that handles conflict is not in my Copilot, nor do I see Copilot, etc. Are these features restricted to some area from Nigeria?
Um, so some features I showed you today are still in Frontier or need the Claude models enabled. So either your organization hasn't enabled Claude yet, or you're not part of the Frontier program with your organization. These are kind of the preview features. I would say this is most probably the reason, and not based on Nigeria region or something like that. So you might need to be a bit curious, and it should come then in the upcoming weeks or month.
Perfect. Next question is, how reliable is Copilot for meeting summaries and action tracking in complex discussions?
I would say, as always with AI, right? Do not rely 100% on it. But personally, I enable transcript in every single meeting, and I really rely on that. So even though it may not be 100% correct if you read through the transcript, but based on the context, Copilot makes quite good summaries. And of course, it's even get better and better with the latest models and work IQ. So I definitely rely on the transcript and Copilot summaries. But please always double check. Sometimes are some misspellings or some not correct phrases. But I would say 80 to 85% is quite good. And of course, if you have a physical meeting, it you would need to enable voice recognition, that it can identify who is speaking. Otherwise, it's just one person speaking, and then of course there are some manual tasks to have a better summary who has said what, and just keep that in mind for physical meetings.
Perfect. And next question is, which Copilot capability do you think is currently underused but will have the biggest long-term potential?
So personally, I do not use Copilot notebooks that heavily. However, I think it has great potential to just have a knowledge source with different information, because you can link to different documents, and when the document is updated, Copilot automatically updates, of course, the answers. So I would say Copilot notebooks is still underestimated.
Perfect. That looks like that's all the questions. So I'd like to just extend a big thank you to you again, Pascal, for taking time out to carry out this webinar. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and this webinar will be recorded and you will receive an email after the webinar. So hope you enjoy and take care. Enjoy the rest of your days, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.